On a sunny Tuesday afternoon, the peaceful suburban streets of Boulder Hill, Illinois, seemed to embody perfection. Rows of identical homes with manicured lawns stretched out in quiet harmony, the only sounds being birds chirping and the occasional hum of a distant lawnmower. Tanya, a dedicated nanny, walked hand in hand with Max, a reserved 3-year-old, while his spirited 5-year-old sister, Lily, skipped beside them. The children's laughter and curious chatter filled the air, a testament to the joy and trust they shared with Tanya. Lily pointed excitedly at a squirrel darting across the sidewalk. "Look, Tanya. Do you think he's looking for acorns?" she exclaimed. Tanya smiled warmly. "Maybe. Squirrels need to gather food for winter. So he's probably searching for something delicious." The innocence of the moment was a stark contrast to the unease brewing just around the corner. As they turned onto Sycamore Drive, Tanya noticed Mrs. Perkins, the neighborhood's self-appointed watchdog, pruning her rose bushes. The elderly woman's gaze lingered on Tanya, her expression unreadable, but laden with judgment. Tanya had felt this scrutiny before. A silent, unspoken question about her presence in a neighborhood like this, with children who didn't share her skin color. Resolute, Tanya tightened her grip on Max's small hand, determined to focus on her work and the children's happiness. But Mrs. Perkins' stare didn't waver. Something about Tanya, her mere existence in this space, seemed to stir suspicion in the older woman, a suspicion she couldn't quite justify but couldn't ignore either. At the park, Lily rushed toward the swings, her laughter ringing out as she called, "Push me, Tanya!" Max, quieter but equally delighted, toddled to the small slide. Tanya's heart swelled with affection for these children, who had become like family over the past 2 years. She gave Lily a gentle push, savoring the rhythm of the swing and the simple beauty of the day. Unbeknownst to Tanya, Mrs. Perkins had acted on her irrational doubts. From her porch, she dialed the police, her voice a mix of self-righteous concern and veiled prejudice. "There's a woman here with 2 children," she reported. "She looks suspicious. She's black, and the children are white. I think something's wrong." At the park, Tanya's moment of peace was interrupted by the distant wail of sirens. Her heart skipped a beat as 2 patrol cars turned onto Sycamore Drive and stopped near the park. Tanya froze, her mind racing. What could possibly warrant police presence in this quiet, affluent neighborhood? 2 officers emerged from the cars. Officer Hendricks, with his stern demeanor, barked, "Ma'am, step away from the children." His tone was sharp, commanding, and entirely out of place in this tranquil setting. Tanya's hand instinctively dropped from the swing as Max clung to her leg, his face a picture of confusion. "I'm their nanny," Tanya managed, her voice steady but tinged with disbelief. "I work for their parents. We got a call about a possible abduction," Hendricks stated coldly. "Move away from the kids." Shock washed over Tanya. "An abduction? No, this is a misunderstanding. I've cared for these kids for 2 years. Their parents." Her words faltered as the weight of the accusation settled over her. In an instant, her entire world had shifted. The idyllic afternoon had turned into a nightmare, exposing the deep-seated biases that could shatter even the most picturesque community. The once serene park, filled with the echoes of children's laughter and the soft rustle of leaves, had transformed into a scene of chaos and heartbreak. Tanya stood frozen, her arm twisted painfully behind her back by Officer Hendricks. "Ma'am, I said move," he barked, his grip unrelenting. Tanya winced, her mind racing as her thoughts blurred into a cacophony of fear and disbelief. How had her peaceful day with Lily and Max spiraled into this nightmare? Max, sensing the danger but too young to understand it fully, clung tightly to Tanya's jeans, his small hands trembling. His cries, heart-wrenching and loud, echoed through the park. Lily, more aware of the gravity of the situation, jumped off the swing and ran to her brother, her voice trembling as she demanded, "Tanya, what's happening?" Their innocence made the scene even more unbearable, piercing Tanya's heart like a dagger. Desperation surged through Tanya. She turned to the officers, her voice cracking under the weight of her emotions. "Please call their parents. They'll tell you who I am." But Hendricks didn't waver, his face cold and resolute. He tightened his grip, forcing Tanya to comply. In the distance, Mrs. Perkins, a neighbor known for her sharp tongue and colder heart, stood on her porch, watching with detached indifference. Tanya's gaze locked on her, silently pleading, but no help came. How could anyone watch this unfold without stepping in? Officer Talbot, visibly uneasy, tried to intervene. Hendricks, maybe we should. Stay out of it, Talbot. Hendricks snapped, cutting him off. This is protocol. Tanya's voice trembled as she tried again. You're hurting me. I didn't do anything. Her words, though filled with pain and truth, seemed to fall on deaf ears. The children's cries grew louder, their little faces streaked with tears. Max's voice broke through the chaos, screaming, "Leave her alone. She's our nanny." Lily, her older sister's courage shining through, shouted, "She didn't take us. We love her." But Hendricks remained unmoved. To him, the sight of a black woman with 2 white children painted a picture he had already decided to believe. Guilty until proven innocent. The park, once a haven of joy, now buzzed with murmurs from the gathering crowd. Neighbors stood at the edges, their faces a mix of concern and suspicion. Yet no one stepped forward to help. Were they too afraid, or just unwilling to get involved? As Tanya's heart pounded in her chest, Officer Talbot hesitated, his conscience battling protocol. "Hendricks, the kids are saying." "I don't care what the kids are saying," Hendricks barked, his grip tightening further. "We're here to protect them, not listen to some sob story." Tanya blinked back tears, refusing to let them fall. She wouldn't give him the satisfaction of seeing her break. Suddenly, a voice cut through the tension like a blade. "What's going on here?" Tanya turned, relief flooding her as Frank, the children's father, sprinted toward them. His tie flapped as he ran, his face a mix of anger and concern. "Let her go. That's my nanny," he demanded, his voice sharp enough to make Hendricks flinch. Hendricks's grip loosened slightly, but his expression remained defiant. "Sir, we got a call about a possible abduction. We're just doing our job," Hendricks said, his voice dripping with justification. Frank's fury erupted. "By assaulting her in front of my kids? Without even checking with me first?" He knelt to comfort Lily and Max, their tear-streaked faces burying into his chest. "This woman is family to us," he declared, standing tall again. "She's been with my children for years." Hendricks's confidence wavered for the first time, and he glanced at Talbot. But Frank wasn't finished. "Protocol doesn't give you the right to treat an innocent person like this. Look at my kids." He gestured to the sobbing children. Lily clung to his leg, her voice trembling as she cried. "They were so mean to Tanya." Before Hendricks could respond, his superior arrived. Sergeant Myers stepped out of her patrol car, her eyes scanning the scene with a practiced calm. Frank wasted no time. "Sergeant, this officer assaulted our nanny without verifying anything. He assumed the worst because of her skin color." Myers listened, her expression unreadable, before addressing the officers privately. After a tense exchange, she returned to Tanya and Frank. "Mr. Dawson, Miss Harris," she began, her tone firm but apologetic, "I've reviewed the situation." While the officers were responding to a call, there was clearly a lack of proper communication and unnecessary force. "For that, I deeply apologize." Frank's jaw tightened, his voice steady but filled with rage. "An apology doesn't undo the trauma you caused. My children are devastated, and Tanya was treated like a criminal." Myers nodded solemnly. "I understand. There will be a formal investigation into this matter." As the crowd began to disperse, some still recording, Tanya crouched down beside Max and Lily, her voice soft yet unwavering. "It's okay, you two." "I'm okay. We're going to be okay." But as the weight of the day settled on her, she couldn't help but wonder. Why had this happened? Why hadn't they just believed her? The air was heavy with tension as Officer Myers assured Tanya, "Officer Hendricks's conduct is under review, and appropriate action will be taken. We'll also implement more training to ensure situations like this don't happen again." Tanya's voice, though quiet, carried the weight of her frustration. "What about me? How do I know this won't happen the next time I take these kids out for a walk?" Myers met her gaze, her expression softening. "You have every right to be angry. I can't promise it won't happen again," she admitted. "But I can promise we're working to change the way we respond, starting with this incident. You'll be informed of every step we take." Tanya nodded, though the day's events hung heavily on her shoulders like a storm cloud refusing to lift. I just want to be treated like everyone else, she said softly. That's all. As the officers departed, the park's atmosphere began to ease. Neighbors retreated to their homes, their hushed whispers lingering in the air. From her porch, Mrs. Perkins stood watching, her face inscrutable. It was clear she hadn't anticipated the fallout her call would unleash. Frank turned to Tanya, his face etched with sorrow and regret. I don't know what to say, Tanya. I'm so sorry this happened. It never should have. Tanya managed a faint, tight-lipped smile. I know it wasn't your fault, Frank. But this is my reality. It's exhausting. Frank nodded, his eyes brimming with empathy. If there's anything I can do, anything at all, just let me know. For a moment, they stood in shared silence, the weight of the ordeal settling around them. The children clung to their father's legs, their small bodies still trembling, though the sobs had subsided. Finally, Tanya sighed, her voice steady despite the turmoil. Let's just get the kids home. We all need a break. The drive back was unusually quiet, a stark contrast to the chaos of the park. Frank gripped the steering wheel tightly, his jaw clenched in frustration. In the back seat, the children's tear-streaked faces reflected their lingering fear. Tanya sat in the passenger seat, her gaze fixed on the passing scenery, her mind a whirlwind of thoughts. When they pulled into the driveway, Frank broke the silence. You don't have to stay any longer today. If you want, I can handle things from here. Tanya shook her head. No, I'll stay. The kids need to see that everything's okay, that life is normal, even after something like this. Frank nodded, his admiration for her resilience evident. Okay, but promise me you'll let me know if you need anything. As they entered the house, Emily, Frank's wife, rushed to greet them, her face alight with concern. What happened, Frank? I saw the police outside the park. Are the kids okay? Lily and Max ran to their mother, clutching her tightly as she knelt to embrace them. Her worried eyes flicked to Frank and Tanya, searching for answers. Frank's voice was heavy as he explained. Tanya was wrongfully accused of kidnapping the kids by the police. Emily's eyes widened in disbelief. What? How could why? She turned to Tanya, her expression softening with sympathy. Tanya, I'm so sorry. I can't believe this happened. Tanya offered a faint smile. It's okay, Emily. I'm just glad we're all home safe. Emily stood and hugged Tanya tightly. You're part of this family. We're going to make sure this never happens again. As the evening wore on, the house grew quieter, though the day's events lingered like an unwelcome guest. Frank and Emily distracted the children with a movie, while Tanya found solace in the kitchen, cleaning to keep her hands busy. But her mind replayed the day's events relentlessly. The fear in the children's eyes, the rough grip of Officer Hendricks, the cold, indifferent gaze of Mrs. Perkins. Each memory was a reminder of the countless times her humanity had been questioned, the prejudice she faced simply for existing. Her hands trembled as she gripped the edge of the counter. It wasn't just about today. It was about every other moment when she'd been judged unfairly, her worth diminished without reason. Frank's footsteps were soft as he entered the kitchen. Tanya, he said gently, you don't have to do that. Come sit down. She shook her head. I need to keep busy. Frank leaned against the doorframe, his voice steady. I know today was a lot, but Emily and I are here for you. Whatever you need, just say the word. Tanya glanced at him, her eyes filled with gratitude and exhaustion. Thanks, Frank. It's just, her voice broke slightly. It's hard, knowing that no matter how much I care, no matter how much good I do, people will still see me as less. Frank's jaw tightened. I hate that this happened to you. And I hate that this is the world we live in. But we'll do something about it, Tanya. This can't go unanswered. She nodded, though doubt lingered in her heart. Could things really change? Or was this just another cycle in an unending struggle?